Hello everyone, and welcome back to Torchlight 2. We have just entered the abandoned sawmill, and this is actually another place where we get a robot part, and a bit of story as well, which is, I really like this area. Day 1. We are in mourning today. Sophia was found dead. I can't bring myself to describe the state her body was found in, as ruined as the flesh of the other poor souls discovered last week. If Foreman Siegfried won't organize a hunting party to find the perpetrator, we'll have to do it ourselves. We are afraid to leave our cabins when night falls. Okay, and in this area you will find these skeletons sort of, I'll zoom in a little, tied or stuck to the wall to some wooden part with these axes. Click on them to remove the axe and thus release the skeleton spirit. I hope I'll find all of them sort of on the first try. And as you can see, this place is now inhabited by the ghosts of whoever was working here and lots of werewolves. I'm fairly certain it's quite clear what happened. Okay, it's nice. That's day 2. It's possible to find these diaries in the wrong order, and it's not actually necessary to find them, but I would like to. So, day 2. 2 entire families have gone missing. The Rourkes and the Samari clan. They were strong and capable men among them, and their homes showed signs of a vicious struggle. The total count of dead and missing has risen to 16. The wolves in the area are showing a peculiar aggression, snarling and slinking outside the stockade walls. They seem to smell the fear here. Okay, again, I'm hoping I don't miss any of the skeletons stuck to walls. I think there's a helicopter outside. No, it's a plane, probably not an actual helicopter. Just making a little noise. I hope it's bearable. And monster shrine. Let's see. Yes, there we go. So that's what the crab looks like. I think it's really quite cool. Again, you have to kill it somewhat quickly so it doesn't go back underground and despawn. Which is why I don't want to show it for too long, I guess. It's day 4, so I should probably find day 3 first. Day 3 is down there, okay. In this area, by the way, I should probably not be doing the teleporting through sections I haven't explored yet, because I might miss the skeleton stuck to walls. And as always, you need to get all of them to find the robot pieces. I'm sure you will have figured out by now. Here's a chest. And day 3. They are werewolves. Sarah spotted one vaulting the stockade as easily as though it were a garden gate. There are over 30 souls lost now, and we have sent for help. We can only pray that aid returns in time. The howls are rising now, even before sunset. Tomorrow I may take as many folk as will join me and attempt to make an escape. Guardians be with us. Yeah. So now we can make our way to day 4. See what I mean? You can only cross so much area with a teleport if it's not possible to walk there quickly enough, essentially. Cameron is dead. I found this journal amongst his belongings. There are only a handful of us left now, barricaded in the cellar. We must leave this place, for we cannot outlast them. When Cameron made to leave, Foreman Siegfried transformed into one of those beasts, right in front of us. He tore them to pieces in his rage. His bloodthirst slaked, he left the camp, but we are sure that he will return. We may not see another dawn. Sarah. So, doesn't seem like there was much of a happy ending to this, and this, by the way, will open once we found all the skeletons. Really, yeah, it doesn't make the impression of having gone particularly well. I'm wondering if that was enough to open the gate. Yes, it was. Okay. So in here we have the robotic body. And now there's only one more piece missing, and that's... Well, I know where it is, so it shouldn't be a problem to find it. Oh look, there's a day 5, so at least they made it one more day. But there's 3 skeletons lying around here, so... Don't be too hopeful. This is my last journal entry. There are only 3 of us now, and we have a few hours of sunlight before dusk. The sounds of the wolves are everywhere. We will try for the gates, but we do not have much hope. If anyone finds this, it is likely that you are as doomed as we. Leave at once if you can. Guardians protect us. Sarah, Ted, and Biram. So, those would be the owners of those 3 lovely skeletons here. Yeah. As I said, I really like this area. It's sort of... just that little bit of backstory really... I think that adds a lot to a game, and it you know, it's so easy to add such a thing, and at least for me, it really helps, you know, make the game come alive, I guess. Okay. So look here. A Grizzled Alpha. Oh, found his eye. Remember, we were here mostly to get explosives, because supposedly there are explosives in a sawmill. I don't quite know why they have explosives, but they do. And a skull of Richelieu, which I just pronounce it that way. Here's the dynamite. I keep thinking these Praetorian things are set pieces. They're not actually. And as I said, this skull is really quite nice. The socket of the Alpha gives 28 strength if put in a... it's not particularly good. Grom's Fireblade. Fire damage, cast speed, fire armor. It's not that terrible, but it's not that great. Okay, I should probably identify these mysterious things I find so you can see them. I just sort of... I'm in the habit of not doing it because I have no more use for them, essentially. Nah, it's two-handed, making it pretty darn useless. The battle mantle, shoulder armor. Electric and poison damage. I mean, it's not good for me, but it's not terrible. Might be using that on my Glavelander. Okay, well, we have what we came for, the dynamite. Yeah, I guess going on with the sort of overspanning theme of Act 3 that I've... in my commentary, that is, not of the actual act, of comparing the game to Diablo 3 a little. And just in case it's not clear, I really like both games, so I'm not trying to say one's better than the other. They're just... depending on what you find important in your action role-playing games, there might be... one might be better for you than the other, but at least the way I see it, it's not... there is no longer a reason to buy one over the other, basically. I mean, at this stage, because of how cheap you can get Torchlight 2, it's probably... I mean, you can buy both, I guess. Diablo 3 is still reasonably expensive with the expansion. It still costs the full price, I believe. Still... I don't know, still 40 or 60 euros to get the game with expansion. I might be wrong on that though. So yeah, if you're not looking to spend that, wait for a Steam sale. Diablo Torchlight 2 is on sale every 3 or 4 months. So yeah, if that's not too long for you, you can always wait and then buy it for, I don't know, maybe 4 euros or so. Quite affordable.
How bad was it?
But yeah, going on with the theme, I was going to... oh yeah, Diablo 3 also has some instances where they do this sort of telling you a story that's completely irrelevant to the main plot, just a little side thing talking about the fate of just some person or other, and you know, essentially telling you how they died. Stuff like you know, lost love letters that you find and lost diaries of someone, you know, getting increasingly desperate, and you know, like in that sawmill, stuff like that. I can't remember a single instance in Diablo 3 where it was quite as good, but just there were some little instances. I think the story of the blacksmith Hedrick is somewhat close, but yeah. I know, I always find these little sort of snippets of story quite sad, and well, they tend to be sad, basically. I mean, there's no reason such a snippet would have to be sad. It could also be a success story of, I don't know, someone opening a store in Tristram or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I know they've done stuff like that in Diablo 3, and I remember finding those sort of torn-up letters and such. I just can't remember an instance where I was as impressed as I was by the sawmill story. It's just that sort of, you know, you basically retrace the steps of the last survivors of the sawmill, and I don't know, learn how they died, essentially. And I just like it. I don't know why. If I know there's nothing in an area that I actually need anymore, I will go somewhat quicker, like I'm doing now. You know, I might have said at some point that I was going to do full exploration, but it's not going to happen. Just because the character is strong enough to easily deal with the enemies, and it's I don't think it's particularly fun just watching me fight. The fighting itself is fun to play, but not so fun to watch. So I think it would be better if you saw, you know, just me killing bosses and me doing story, and I guess not me wasting time killing enemies that I no longer really need to kill. I mean, it's not like I can still get experience and level up. And there's Bloatfang, by the way. Again, I am ever so slightly quite strong. The fight can be a lot more difficult because he keeps spawning these gaseous shamblers, for example, and I think there's actually a never-ending stream of undead coming towards you. Again, I've just decided to go with a fairly overpowered character, and here's the automaton power source, by the way. And as I've explained, the reason I'm going with it is because I think I would prefer to see it like that, where you know, you get to see the areas and some exploration and all that, but not actually all the dreary dredge work. Okay, here we have Sprocket, anxiously watches over his cousins. And because we did that first quest, you know, getting them that mushroom thing, the Boltus blue Boltus flesh thing, they're now helping us with the problem we have with Cacklespit. You know, she gave us that bogus quest with the really, really terrible rewards. And that's basically the follow-up quest. Okay. He tells us that he hopes our information was... the information he gave was useful. And currently our main quest, by the way, is to reactivate this thing, which we need to open this door, which is where the alchemist has essentially gone. I mean, you would think we can sort of just, you know, blast it open using that dynamite, for example, but no, apparently not.
This power source will fit perfectly into the automaton's boiler. This is only a minor setback. We knew about these power sources from our explorations of the Emberworks on the far side of the Sundered Battlefield.
Okay. So, we now need to recharge the power source. And I should also probably sell all the stuff that my pet is carrying around. What are those shoulders? Magic find. Not particularly good. Oh yeah, this can go away as well. The rest are mostly set pieces. I'm keeping those just on me. My chests are actually full, which is a bit sad. The rain effect here, by the way, seems to be really, really badly coded. It's really dragging my frame rates down. Although, as I've explained before, the game actually has a lot of frame rate issues in sort of intense combat situations. It's just... I think they went with a fairly high-level approach to programming, so... that makes programming easier in general. I don't know how adept my average viewer is at that sort of thing, but basically, high-level programming, or rather the higher level an API you use, the more you already have pre-made solutions for things. So, I guess an example that I could give is if you were to do a low... It's just an example, by the way. This doesn't actually reflect any real situation that's... Well, it somewhat does, but anyway. In a low-level environment for, say, coding sound, a low-level environment would only provide you a function, for example, to... what was it that Direct Sound actually did? It allows you to write your sound sample by sample to a buffer. So you're literally saying, okay, sample 17 will have a left value of 5000 and a right value of 2500, for example. And then you have to fill all that manually and essentially build your sound using that method. You know, giving a left and right sound sample for each of these samples. Giving a left and right sound channel value for each of the samples. Which, if you're doing 48 kilohertz, that would be 48,000 samples per second that you just need to fill that way. You just need to tell each sample what its left and right channel value are, assuming you're doing stereo sound again. And an example of a higher level sound API would be an API that gives you a function to, you know, just play an MP3 file that's on your computer. So all you do is you call this function and you pass it the address of your MP3 file, and then it gets played. Obviously, just passing it an MP3 file is easier for programming. I mean, all you have to do is know where your MP3 file is, and it'll be able to play that sound. Obviously there's more complexity to it, but you get the general point. But it's just a natural consequence of how it works that using a higher level API almost universally yields worse results. It's easier, so it allows more people to essentially program. Because using really low-level APIs is, it's much more difficult. I mean, it can also be more fun. It really depends on what you like to do, but low-level APIs are harder to use. You'd have to take your MP3 file yourself and sort of open it and check for each sample what the value is and such, and you might want to make sure that your MP3 file has the correct sample rate as well and all that. It's complicated. But the more general solution would have to be written in such a way that it accepts any MP3 file. regardless of how long the MP3 file is, what its sample rate is, all that stuff. I believe sample rate can be variable in MP3 files. Might be wrong. I don't know. Anyway, it just has to take a lot more eventualities into account, which makes the code less optimized. And there might be cases where it makes no difference, but almost universally... Definitely want to find these crystals here, by the way. Almost universally, high-level APIs mean you lose performance in exchange for ease of programming. And in some cases it doesn't matter. I mean, there are cases where you are in a situation where the code doesn't need to be particularly good. I'm not advocating writing bad code at any point, but you know, let's say you have a piece of code that runs once when the game starts. Say the piece of code that loads the game's settings. You know, most games have a sort of settings.ini file in which it says, you know, the screen resolution you want and the volume and all your settings basically. If you've been computer gaming, you probably have seen those files and edited them before. It's done less these days, but still fairly frequent and fairly common. Let's say you have that file and you only load it once, and then if the user changes settings at some point, then you probably want to save those new settings to the INI file, but it's not a file that you constantly work on, basically. So if whatever code you're using to access that file is not particularly good, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you sort of trigger it once when you open it, and then maybe when the user changes settings. I mean, even if the user constantly changes his settings, sort of every 10 minutes or so, that's code you use every 10 minutes. And that would be an extreme case of... Ooh, not just mine spawned, yes! Yeah, pretty extreme case of that. Look, creepers, by the way. If you spend hours and hours optimizing that code to make it twice as fast, it just doesn't matter. You're not gaining any actual performance in the game because the code is executed so rarely. By the way, gold sword. But sadly, it's not good at all. But it's just a fun little Minecraft Easter egg. So essentially, spending a lot of time optimizing that file loading code would be a waste of time. If instead, of course, you've got a piece of code that's used constantly. Let's say in Torchlight 2 you have a piece of code that renders your particle effects. Something that essentially, whenever I'm using Frostwave, it sort of calculates where the sort of little ice spikes on the ground go. If you can make that code faster than it is, that's almost universally worth it. Because someone using this, using Frostwave, he will be calling that piece of code all the time, constantly. So it makes sense to think about whether a certain piece of code needs to be optimized. It just feels like in this game they haven't done much optimizing to the part of the code that's critical, or they've used an API that's so high level that it doesn't allow for much optimizing. I think they used OpenGL. I might be wrong. I really don't know. But yeah, basically high-level approaches tend to be the lost hold. I have never seen this. Cool. Something new. I think that's one of those New Game Plus dungeons that were added to the game. I don't know how big it is. I mean, I am at the end of an episode, so actually I'll make a cut here. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you again next time. Bye bye.